Given the following graph, solve the inequalities. Write your answer in interval notation. Part A says f of x is less than 0. So this is asking for what x values on this graph produce y values that are less than 0. Because remember, f of x is just a fancy way of writing y. So this is like asking, where are the y values less than 0? So remember, if you're looking at the coordinate plane, and we have the first quadrant, second quadrant, third, and fourth quadrants, if the y values are less than 0, that means the y values are negative, and the y values would be negative in the third and the fourth quadrants. So that means we're looking for the portion of the graph that is below the x-axis, which I've highlighted here in yellow. So this portion of the graph goes from an x value of -4 to an x value of -1. So our answer is going to be, again, an interval of x values. So I'm going to write x is an element of the interval from -4 to -1. And I'm choosing parentheses because this is an inequality that is less than. It's not less than or equal to 0. So we want just the portion of the graph below the x-axis. Now, one quick note about this fancy x is an element of symbol. Remember, you don't have to include that. You could certainly just write your answer as -4, -1. But the drawback to writing your answer like this is this could look like an ordered pair. This could look like a point, -4, -1 on the graph. And that's not really your intention. Your answer is an interval of x values, all the x values in between -4 and -1. So that's why I tend to not write my answer like that. And I like to write x as an element of the interval because that's very precise and tells you exactly what the answer means, that this is an interval of x values. Part B, f of x is less than or equal to 0. So again, that's like asking, where is y less than or equal to 0? That also means where is the graph below the x-axis, but this time we want to include 0. So that's going to be the same exact interval, but we would also include -4 and -1 because at -4, the y value is 0. So the x interval will be from -4 to -1 with brackets to include both -4 and -1. Part C, where is f of x greater than 0? So again, that's like saying, where is y greater than 0? So now we're wanting positive y values, and we know the y values will be positive in quadrants 1 and 2. So that's essentially looking for the portion of the graph that is above the x-axis, and there's two portions of the graph that are above the x-axis where the y values are positive. So that's going to be the x intervals from -infinity until -4. Now, once again, because we only want the y values greater than 0, not equal to, we'll do a parenthesis on -4 so we don't include it. And then we will union that with the interval from -1 to +infinity. So there's two different pieces of the graph where the y values are positive, so we will have two intervals as our answer. And Part D is asking, where is f of x greater than or equal to 0? In other words, y values are greater than or equal to 0. Again, the portion of the graph above the x-axis, but also including the points that are on the x-axis. So that would mean we would have the same intervals as before, but this time with brackets to include both the -4 and the -1. So -infinity to -4, union -1 to infinity. So those are 4 examples of how we can solve inequalities using a graph.